Yes, mandatory rules of the National Electrical Code, or NEC, can be superseded by a local ordinance. However, it's crucial to understand the conditions under which this is permitted. The fundamental principle is that a local ordinance must be more restrictive than the NEC. In other words, it must impose stricter requirements or higher standards than those outlined in the NEC. Let's consider the example provided, where a local ordinance mandates that service equipment be mounted above the floodplain. The NEC, on the other hand, generally requires service equipment to be located in a dry location. The local ordinance introduces an additional criterion, that of floodplain elevation, making it more restrictive than the NEC dry location requirement. Consequently, in this scenario, the local ordinance would take precedence. The authority having jurisdiction, or OJ, plays a critical role in interpreting and enforcing electrical codes. They have the authority to approve or disapprove deviations from the NEC based on local conditions and safety considerations. In the specific case of operating a service disconnect with a hook stick, the AHA could allow this practice if they determine that it is safe to do so. However, this decision would not be made lightly and would involve a thorough evaluation of several factors. Firstly, the height of the service disconnect is a primary concern. If the disconnect is located at an excessive height, it may be difficult or unsafe to operate with a hook stick. The AHA would need to assess whether the height is manageable and whether the person operating the hook stick can safely reach and manipulate the disconnect. Secondly, the type of hook stick being used is also a factor. Different hook sticks have different designs, lengths, and insulation properties. The AHA would need to ensure that the hook stick is appropriate for the specific service disconnect and that it is in good working condition. Thirdly, the training and experience of the person operating the hook stick are essential. Operating a service disconnect with a hook stick requires specialized knowledge and skills. The AHA would need to verify that the person has received adequate training and has sufficient experience to perform the task safely. Fourthly, the location of the service disconnect is an important consideration. The AHA would need to assess the surrounding environment to identify any potential hazards, such as obstacles, obstructions, or electrical equipment. If the location is deemed unsafe, the AHA may deny the request to use a hook stick. If, after considering all of these factors, the AHA determines that it is safe to use a hook stick to operate the service disconnect, they would need to issue a permit to authorize this practice. The permit would likely specify the conditions under which the hook stick can be used, such as the type of hook stick, the training requirements for the operator, and any other relevant safety precautions. It's important to note that the AHA decision is based on a comprehensive assessment of the specific circumstances. They are not simply granting a blanket approval for the use of hook sticks in all situations. Each case is evaluated individually to ensure the safety of personnel and equipment. The NEC provides a comprehensive set of rules and guidelines for electrical installations. However, it's not intended to be a one-size-fits-all solution. Local conditions, such as floodplain elevations, may warrant more restrictive requirements. Local ordinances can address these specific needs and ensure that electrical installations are safe and appropriate for the local environment. The AHA plays a vital role in bridging the gap between the NEC and local ordinances. They have the expertise and authority to interpret the codes and make informed decisions that promote electrical safety. In conclusion, while the NEC provides a baseline for electrical safety, local ordinances can supersede its rules if they are more restrictive. The AHA has the authority to approve deviations from the NEC, but only after a thorough assessment of the risks and benefits. The use of hook sticks to operate service disconnects is one example of a situation where the AHA judgment is critical. The NEC contains numerous articles that address various aspects of electrical installations, and it is essential for electrical professionals to be familiar with these articles. Some relevant articles include Article 230, which covers service entrances, and Article 404, which covers switches. Understanding these articles is crucial for ensuring compliance with the NEC and for promoting electrical safety. The NEC is updated regularly to reflect changes in technology and best practices. It is important for electrical professionals to stay up to date with the latest edition of the NEC and to understand the changes that have been made. This can be accomplished through continuing education courses, industry publications, and online resources. Electrical safety is a shared responsibility. Electrical professionals, ODs, and the public all have a role to play in preventing electrical accidents. By following the NEC, adhering to local ordinances, and exercising caution, we can all help to create a safer electrical environment. The NEC and local ordinances work together to ensure electrical safety. The NEC provides a baseline set of rules, while local ordinances can address specific local conditions. The AHA plays a critical role in interpreting and enforcing these codes. In the provided example, the local ordinance requiring service equipment to be mounted above the floodplain is a more restrictive requirement than the NEC general requirement for a dry location. This illustrates how local ordinances can address specific local hazards. The AHA decision to allow or disallow the use of a hook stick to operate a service disconnect is another example of how local conditions and safety considerations can influence electrical practices. The AHA must consider the height of the disconnect, the type of hook stick, the training of the operator, and the location of the disconnect before making a decision. Ultimately, the goal is to ensure that electrical installations are safe and reliable. By following the NEC, adhering to local ordinances, and exercising good judgment, we can all contribute to a safer electrical environment. The National Electrical Code, specifically sections like 230.70A and 404.8, establishes mandatory requirements for electrical installations. However, the authority having jurisdiction, or ODG, which is typically a local government entity, has the power to enact local ordinances that may supersede these NEC rules, provided they are more stringent. This is based on the principle that local authorities are best positioned to address specific needs and hazards within their jurisdictions. For example, if a local ordinance mandates that service equipment be mounted above the floodplain and this results in the service switch handle being located at 8 feet 6 inches, this ordinance would typically take precedence over NEC regulations that might otherwise dictate a different mounting height. The NEC primary focus is on general safety and standardization, while local ordinances can address specific environmental or geographic concerns. The AHA role is to ensure that all electrical installations comply with both the NEC and any applicable local ordinances. In cases where there is a conflict between the two, the more restrictive requirement generally applies. In the scenario presented, the AHA could potentially allow the use of a hook stick to operate the service disconnect, but this would be subject to a thorough safety evaluation. The AHA would need to consider several factors, including firstly, the height of the service disconnect, secondly, the type and construction of the hook stick, thirdly, the training and experience of the personnel who would be using the hook stick, and fourthly, the overall accessibility and safety of the location where the service disconnect is installed. If the AHA determines that the use of a hook stick is a safe and practical solution, they may issue a permit or waiver authorizing its use. However, they may also impose specific conditions or restrictions to minimize the risk of accidents or injuries. It is important to note that the AHA decision is not arbitrary. It must be based on sound engineering principles and a comprehensive understanding of the potential hazards involved. The AHA may consult with electrical engineers, inspectors, and other experts to gather information and make an informed decision. The National Electrical Code is a comprehensive set of standards, but it is not intended to address every possible situation. Local ordinances provide a mechanism for addressing specific needs and hazards that are not adequately covered by the NEC. The AHA plays a critical role in ensuring that electrical installations are safe and compliant with all applicable codes and regulations. Electrical installations must comply with all applicable codes and regulations, including the NEC and any local ordinances. The AHA has the authority to interpret and enforce these codes and regulations. In cases where there is a conflict between the NEC and a local ordinance, the more restrictive requirement generally applies. The use of a hook stick to operate a service disconnect may be permitted if the AHA determines that it is safe to do so. The AHA decision must be based on a thorough safety evaluation and may be subject to specific conditions or restrictions. It is essential for electrical contractors and installers to be familiar with both the NEC and any local ordinances that apply to their work. They should also consult with the AHA to clarify any questions or concerns. Compliance with electrical codes and regulations is essential for ensuring the safety of people and property. The NEC establishes minimum safety standards for electrical installations. Local ordinances can supplement these standards to address specific local conditions. The AHA plays a critical role in ensuring that electrical installations comply with both the NEC and local ordinances. The AHA has the authority to interpret and enforce these codes and regulations. The use of a hook stick to operate a service disconnect is a specific example of a situation where the AHA judgment is required. The AHA must consider the specific circumstances and determine whether the use of a hook stick is safe and appropriate. If the AHA approves the use of a hook stick, they may impose specific conditions or restrictions to ensure safety. Electrical contractors and installers should always consult with the AHA to ensure that their work complies with all applicable codes and regulations. The National Electrical Code is a living document that is constantly being updated to reflect changes in technology and best practices. It is essential for electrical professionals to stay up to date with the latest edition of the NEC. Local ordinances may also be updated from time to time. It is important to check with the AHA to ensure that you are using the most current version of the local ordinances. Compliance with electrical codes and regulations is not just a legal requirement. It is also a moral obligation. Electrical installations that are not properly designed and installed can pose a serious risk of injury or death. Electrical professionals have a responsibility to ensure that their work is safe and compliant with all applicable codes and regulations. The AHA plays a critical role in ensuring that electrical installations are safe and compliant. The AHA is responsible for reviewing plans, inspecting installations, and issuing permits. The AHA also has the authority to enforce electrical codes and regulations. Electrical professionals should work closely with the AHA to ensure that their work is safe and compliant. The National Electrical Code and local ordinances are designed to protect people and property from electrical hazards. Compliance with these codes and regulations is essential for ensuring electrical safety. The AHA plays a critical role in ensuring that electrical installations are safe and compliant. Electrical professionals have a responsibility to ensure that their work is safe and compliant. By working together, we can create a safer electrical environment for everyone. The NEC serves as a baseline for electrical safety, but local jurisdictions can implement more stringent rules. If a local ordinance necessitates placing service equipment above the floodplain, potentially leading to an 8-foot 6-inch handle height for the service switch, this ordinance generally supersedes conflicting NEC guidelines. The AHA discretion comes into play regarding the hook stick operation of the disconnect. Firstly, they will assess the height and accessibility of the disconnect. Secondly, they will evaluate the hook stick's design and installation. Thirdly, they'll consider the operator's training and experience. Fourthly, the surrounding environment will be examined for hazards. The AHA could approve the hook stick usage if deemed safe, potentially with specific stipulations. The focus is on balancing code compliance with practical safety considerations in unique local scenarios.